Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about different modes of training. Basically a guide to making the right workout decision for yourself. There are many different ways that you guys can work out, and depending on certain circumstances that you guys have, you'll kind of be guided to what you like. But I'm going to go over a few training modes. I'll go over the pros and cons, and hopefully you can make a decision for yourself that works for you. So you've all seen this before. Basically, this is the Carbonin formula that we have all had you guys do from the beginning of the class. And our requirements were to make sure that your activities outside of class fall between 60 and 80% of your max heart rate or the Carbonin formula. So basically, just to review, for the 60%, you're going to take 220 and subtract your age, which equals your max heart rate. And then you're going to take your max heart rate and subtract your resting heart rate, which is more accurate than just using your max heart rate. From there, you're going to multiply that by 0.6, and then you're going to add your resting heart rate back to it, and that will give you your lower end, or your 60% intensity for your workouts outside of class. On the upper end, the 80%, you're basically going to do the same thing, except you're going to multiply by 0.8. Then add your resting heart rate, and that'll give you your 80%. However, some of the methods that we're going to go over today, you're going to need to know how hard you're working, not just 60 or 80% or in between, but we're actually going to go above your 80%. So, to give you just a quick example, so for, let's say, a 19-year-old with a resting heart rate of 68 beats per minute, to give you some actual numbers, 220 minus 19, their age, gives them 201, and 201 minus 68 gives 133. 133 times 0.6, or the lower end, is going to give 79.8, and then we're going to add 68 beats per minute, the resting heart rate, back to 79.8 to give 147.8. For the upper end, 80%, 220 minus their age gives us 201 minus 68 equals 133. 133 times 0.8, or the 80%, gives us 106.4, and then we add the resting heart rate back. 68 gives us 174.4. So like I mentioned before, instead of just going 60 or 80%, we're actually going to go above in certain training modes if you choose that style of working out. So there's basically two main categories of training. And one of them kind of, it irks me a little bit, I guess, in that everybody refers to cardio as basically getting on a treadmill or a stationary bike and doing a workout for an extended period of time. And the reason I don't like that is because cardio refers to your heart, and so there's a lot of different ways of working out that doesn't fall into the traditional cardio category. And so I would like to call the type of working out where you do that type of working out for an extended period of time, I'd like to call that steady state, okay? And I'd like to get away from the cardio, because the other mode of training that we're going to go over is also going to work your heart really, really well. So some of the points for the steady state training is that they're performed at the same intensity for an extended duration for the whole workout. So there's not a whole lot of changes in intensity during that workout bout. It's basically going to stay the same, and that's why I refer to it as a steady state training. Now, with this type of training, in order to get a decent workout, you're going to need to work out between anywhere between 30 minutes to upwards of 2 hours. For somebody who's, an avid runner or training for a half marathon or marathon, their training sessions are going to have to be greatly extended, and because the intensity is at a lower intensity of their heart rate, they can perform this type of workout for an extended period of time. The other type of training, which I'm going to refer to as interval training, includes periods of higher intensity work followed by lower intensity periods of either active recovery, like jogging or walking, or just complete rest. And then this type of working out is repeated multiple times to complete their workout. This type of working out lasts anywhere between 4 minutes to 40 minutes. So we don't have to work out nearly as long using interval training as we do with the steady state. And then the work to rest ratios vary between 1 to 1. So let's say, for example, somebody goes out on the track and they sprint for 30 seconds. A 1 to 1 would be 30 seconds of sprint and then 30 seconds of active recovery or complete rest. And that can vary depending on what type of exercise you're doing, how hard the higher intensity work periods are, where you might need up to, so let's say you're sprinting for 30 seconds, you might need up to 3 minutes, which would be a 1 to 6 of recovery before you can hit another 30-second of a very high intensity work period. And so that's why I give the 1 to 1 to 1 to 6 work to rest ratios. So the different types of actually, working out of the different to the steady state. One of the acronyms that I'm going to give you is LISS. It stands for Low Intensity Steady State. And this is generally performed below 60% of, the heart rate that we figured out in the Carvanid formula, and is performed for an extended duration. So another acronym, LSD, which I refer to as long, slow distance. Somebody goes out on the track and they want to run for an hour straight. Generally, their intensity is going to be really, really low, generally below 60% of, their heart rate. People can also use biking, whether it be stationary bike or regular biking, and they can go for, a nice, easy, low-intensity ride for an extended period of time, elliptical machines, treadmills, and that's all going to be determined by how fast they are running and what their capacity is to work at a higher state or a lower state, depending on how fit they are. Another acronym I'm going to give you is MISS, stands for Moderate Intensity Steady State. Now, this is what we're asking you guys to do outside of class, making sure that your heart rate is between 60 and 80% according to the Carvanid formula. And so it's higher intensity. This type of exercising is also performed for an extended duration, but because it's at a moderate intensity, you're not going to be able to go as long before you become exhausted. So all of these fall into the steady state category. On the other side, the interval, I like doing circuit workouts in my classes where I choose a bunch of different exercises and I change the work to rest ratios. I'll have them partner up, so we may be working for 20 seconds and then they might get 40 or 60 seconds off before they hit another 20-second work bout. I like the circuit workouts a lot. We can do interval training on stationary bikes where you're going for a nice easy bike and then all of a sudden you're going to hit 30 seconds of a hard bike or a minute of a hard biking, and then you're going to lower that intensity down so you can recover again. You can do that multiple times. That can also be done on the elliptical machine, running out on the track, or treadmill if you choose Tabata, where I referred to the interval training lasting only 4 minutes. Tabatas are generally in that category, but they might repeat multiple Tabatas using different exercises in that type of working out. Weightlifting, surprisingly, is going to fall into the category of interval training because we have periods where we're lifting weights, and then after we do the set number of reps for that set, then we're going to rest. So that would fall into the interval type of training. Depending on how hard you're wanting to work out in the weight room, you could make it a harder interval type of weightlifting session or not. Some of you have experienced battling ropes, basically a rope that you can do different exercises with, and they generally do that interval style where the work periods are very intense. If you've not tried battling ropes, I highly suggest it. Because I think you'd have a different outlook on this type of working out when you experience it at least once. Kettlebell swings, those of you who are versed in kettlebell exercises, kettlebell swings could be considered interval type of working out. Kettlebell swings for a minute and then rest for, a minute or two, minute and a half, whatever, before you hit another bout of kettlebell swings. The type of interval training that I really want to talk about is what's referred to as HIIT, high intensity interval training. Now, notice that the work bouts are performed above 85%. Generally, when you see people talking about HIIT, they're going to go almost all out in the workout bouts. And depending on how fit you are will determine how long your workout period bouts are. And then it will also determine how long you need to recover for before you can hit another one of those very high intensity workout bouts. Now, all of the circuit workouts, biking, elliptical, running, all of that stuff that we talked about can be designed to be a HIIT workout. It would just need to fit your current level of fitness, obviously, and basically what you like to do. But there's a lot of flexibility in what activities you can do in order to make that work. So with low intensity steady state and moderate intensity steady state, like I said before, a lot of people like just going out and running. Some people like going to the gym, getting on the treadmill. Others like elliptical machine because it's less pounding on their joints. And some people like stationary bike. All of those are going to fall into the low intensity or moderate intensity steady state if the intensity is below 85%, maybe between 40 and maybe 80%. For the interval training, like I said before, this is a picture of battling ropes. The interval running, notice how they're really getting after it for a shorter distance. Kettlebell swings, jumping rope, any kind of calisthenics, body weight exercises. This guy's doing a burpee here. And also, if anybody's been to a spin class where they have a hill, that would be considered interval type of training as opposed to steady state where the intensity stays the same the whole way through. So which one do I choose? Well, that might be your question. One thing about the steady state is that it's easier on the body because you're not going at a high intensity. It's less taxing on the body, especially if you have joint problems. The primary fuel source for steady state training is going to be fats or lipids. And that's just because we're working at a lower intensity for the exercise. However, longer durations of time are required to get a good workout using steady state. Because the intensity is lower, less recovery is required, so more workouts can be performed per week as opposed to the interval type of training. So, on the other hand, the interval training is harder on the body due to the higher intensity exercise bouts. Uses carbohydrates and fats as its primary fuel source. However, there are a lot of studies that prove that there are as good or greater results using the high-intensity interval training compared to steady state. With the interval training, workout sessions last 1/3 to 1/2 as long as steady state training due to the higher intensities. And like I said, you get the same or better results, which means you need less time to work out. And so if the excuse that you guys have is, I don't have enough time to work out, this might be a choice for you. And then some of the studies that I've looked at, they really tout the afterburn effect. Basically, after you get done working out for your workout session, you're going to burn calories well after up to 24 to 48 hours, I've heard in a lot of the studies, as opposed to the steady state where the afterburn effect isn't that great. And then many of the studies that I looked at considered high-intensity interval training to be superior to any other type of training. However, that's for you guys to decide. So what's the bottom line? Which one do you choose? What are your goals? What do you want to get out of working out? Is it just to stay fit, whatever? You need to figure that out. Are you training for any particular sport? And if you are, maybe you fit your training, whether it be steady state or high intensity interval training, to fit that particular sport and the demands of that sport that you're training for. Do you have any limitations? Do you have any joint problems? And that might be what guides you to steady state or high intensity interval training. How much time do you have to work out? and then how many days a week do you want to work out, are all good questions that you need to answer. And then what types of exercises do you consider